Excellent. Well, good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Vale of White Horses Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Max Thompson and I'll be chairing this meeting. This meeting is being held at our office in Abbey House, Abingdon. Voting members are here in person as required, but officers and public speakers are able to join remotely if they wish through Microsoft Teams. The meeting is also being streamed live on the Council's YouTube channel for public viewing. I have 5 quick housekeeping announcements. Firstly, for those joining remotely, when you're not speaking, please ensure your microphone is on mute and your camera is off. If you share a presentation on the screen, please stop sharing as soon as it's no longer needed. Public speakers must only have their cameras on and be unmuted when addressing the committee or answering questions of clarification in their designated slots. Number 2, for us in the room evacuation procedure. In the event of an emergency, please evacuate the building through the nearest exit, which is on the right. Go through the corridor immediately to the right and stand next to assembly point 9 in the outside area beyond the fire exit. On arriving at this meeting, you should have read the emergency evacuation procedure and signed the fire register. So please inform Democratic Services if you have not done so. Thirdly, please can everyone ensure their mobile phones and other devices are switched to silent during the meeting. Fourthly, members of the public who wish to leave the meeting after the application they're interested in has been considered, you're very welcome to do so, but please do so quietly. And fifthly, when the meeting is ended, I'll ask for confirmation the live stream has ended. At that point, please make your way out of the building, remembering to sign out as you leave. And just a final point, this is a meeting in public, not a public meeting. And I ask that members of the public, both those attending in person and virtually, do not shout out or disrupt the committee's deliberations outside of those who've registered to speak in your allocated slots. Great. So I now move to apologies for absence. Emily, do we have any apologies for absence? Excellent. Would you mind doing a roll call so everyone knows who's here?
Absolutely. Councillor Max Thompson.
Yes, here.
Councillor Val Shaw. Present. Councillor Ron Batstone.
Present.
Councillor Cheryl Briggs.
Present.
Councillor Jenny Hannaby.
Present.
Councillor Robert Madison.
Present.
Councillor Mike Bighills.
Present.
Councillor Jill Rayner.
Present.
And Councillor Scott Horton.
Present.
Excellent, very good. And now turn to minutes of the meeting of the 29th of November 2023. If there are no comments on those, or maybe there are some, does anyone have any comments on those? In that case, can I have a motion that we accept those as the correct record? Proposer for that motion? Councillor Howson, and seconded by Councillor Rayner. Those in favour of accepting as the correct record of the meeting? I think that's unanimous. What are those against? Any abstentions? Okay, yeah.
I wasn't here, so
oh, fair enough. Abstention then, but yeah, I think they're correct record. Perfect. Agenda item 4, declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations this evening? Councillor Blackstone.
Yes, Chair. Item 7 is in my ward, and I will be speaking on it.
Okay.
So I'll stand down for item 7.
Thank you. Councillor Howson.
Yes, item 9. I am the ward councillor, and I'll be speaking on that one.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Shaw.
Item 9, I'm also the ward councillor, although different ward, and I should be standing down.
Okay, thank you very much. And when we get to those items, I'll ask that you remove yourself from the table and sit in the gallery. Thank you very much. Right, urgent business. Emily Hampton, do we have any urgent business this evening?
No, Chair.
Okay, very good. And in public participation, I confirm we've got a number of speakers on the 3 items we're going to be hearing this evening. There were also 2 statements sent around the committee prior to the meeting, which we may make reference to in our questioning or indeed in our deliberations. And with that, I turn to the first item, which is the land at Monk's Farm in Grove. Penny, I believe you're presenting on this one this evening.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
I'll just share my screen. This application is brought to committee due to an objection from Grove Parish Council. Ian Marshall, Principal Transport Engineer from Oxfordshire County Council, and Emma Turner, Enforcement Team Leader, are also present this evening should any questions arise regarding highways or enforcement matters. This is a Section 73 application to amend 2 conditions of the previously approved outline consent for part of the Monks Farm strategic site. Outline consent for up to 400 dwellings, an extension to the primary school, associated landscaping and infrastructure was approved on this site in April 2021. Since approval of the outline consent, reserved matters consent has been granted for 83 dwellings, known as Phase 1B in the south of the site. Here, Construction works for infrastructure and housing in phase 1B have commenced on site. Your officer's assessment of all material planning considerations relevant to this case is set out in the agenda starting on page 14. Condition 12 of the outline consent required a habitat restoration method statement for the Letcombe Brook corridor to be submitted and approved prior to works commencing on the first phase of development on site. The Letcombe Brook runs through the site here. The brook is currently neglected and works to be agreed within the detailed method statement provide an opportunity to positively manage it for the long term. An application to discharge this condition has been submitted. Since the publication of the agenda, comments from the Environment Agency have been received which raise no objection. However, officers are still awaiting comments from the Ecology Officer before determining this application. Amended wording to condition 12 is sought, proposing the submission and approval of the method statement prior to first occupation within phase 1B and prior to occupation of any other phase other than phase 1B. The key changes are highlighted in yellow here. At the time of outline consent and its associated conditions, it was envisaged that the phasing of construction would start from east to west. However, works have commenced on site in phase 1B, which is shown on the phasing plan here. That's in the southwest of the site. The applicant notes that the Letcombe Brook area to which the method statement relates will not be impacted by phase 1B, and the amended wording to this condition is sought to allow works in phase 1B to continue prior to submission and approval of the method statement. Various iterations of amended wording have been considered during the application process following consultation, including with the Ecology Officer and the Environment Agency. Both are satisfied with the amended wording now sought. Officers are satisfied that the amended wording, that the method statement be submitted and approved prior to first occupation within phase 1B and prior to commencement, of any other phase other than phase 1B, will not have a detrimental impact to the priority habitat of the Letcombe Brook corridor, as phase 1B is not located on or near the brook. Officers do not consider there are grounds for refusing the application in this regard. As approved under the outline consent, the site is to be served by two vehicle access points, one off the A338, known as the Grove Northern Link Road, which includes a bridge crossing of the Letcombe Brook, and a secondary access linking onto Dentworth Road. Condition 13 of the outline consent required details of the bridge to be submitted and approved prior to development commencing on site. The condition was drafted at the time of granting outline consent based on development commencing from east to west, whereby the bridge would be required early in the build-out. Since the publication of the agenda, an application to discharge this condition has been submitted. This is currently with our registration team awaiting fee payment prior to consultation. This application follows a previous discharge of condition application withdrawn in April 2023 as further flood modelling work was required. The applicant has been actively engaging with the EA and OCC on flood modelling and revised bridge design details in the intervening period. Amended wording is sought to condition 13 to allow the continuation of phase 1B prior to bridge details being submitted and approved to prevent further delay in the build out of the site and the future delivery of housing on a strategic housing site. The amended condition would require the bridge design details to be submitted and approved prior to first occupation within phase 1B and prior to commencement of any other phase other than phase 1B. Various iterations of amended wording have also been considered for condition 13 during the application process following consultation, including with the Environment Agency and OCC. Both are satisfied with the amended wording sought. A condition attached to the reserve matters consent for phase 1B restricts the occupation of 55 dwellings until the bridge and associated road linking to the A338 is constructed and open. Officers are satisfied that the proposed amended wording to condition 13, allowing no occupation of phase 1B prior to submission of the bridge details and restricting the construction of any other phases, will not have a severe impact on highway safety or be detrimental in biodiversity or flood risk terms. Officers do not consider that there are grounds for refusing the application in this regard. As demonstrated here, works have commenced on site. conditions 12 and 13, as worded under the outline consent, are the only outstanding pre-commencement conditions. All other pre-commencement details have been submitted and approved. These works are currently unauthorised. However, this application seeks to regularise these works by amending the wording of conditions 12 and 13. Officers have sought to work proactively with the applicant to resolve ongoing issues and bring this application to a conclusion to regularise works on site. This application should be assessed on its own planning merits. The carrying out of unauthorised works on site or lack of formal enforcement action to date is not a material planning consideration, and officers do not consider there are grounds for refusing the application in this regard. Officers consider that the proposed changes to conditions 12 and 13 are acceptable and are not considered to have a detrimental impact upon highway safety, biodiversity or flood risk. Officers are satisfied that there are no material planning considerations that would warrant refusal of the application. Pages 41 to 46 of the agenda sets out recommended wording changes to other conditions from the outline consent where details have been submitted and approved and condition discharged or partially discharged. The application is therefore recommended for approval, subject to the full conditions set out on pages 14 to 23 of the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Penny. I'm sure we'll return to you some questions once we've heard from our speakers. So our first category of speakers, we've got Campbell Gregg and Sian Keeling. I hope I pronounced that correctly. So please.
It's actually just me.
Oh, right. Excellent. So are you Campbell or Sian? Excellent. Right. Oh, that's fine.
Georgina, sorry, I should be on there as well.
So you're not on my list, but I'll ask Democratic Services about this, whether we heard anything.
I haven't had notification of you as a speaker.
Were you planning on speaking as well, or just addressing questions?
Can she address questions if needed, or?
I'm as we had two down already. That's fine. So if you could introduce yourself as well at the start, but yes, if you could address questions as needed, if I'm happy with that. Okay, thank you very much. So you'll have 3 minutes between you, and you'll get a 30-second warning. So please, when you're ready.
Right. Good evening. I'm Sian Keeling. I'm the Development Director at Barratt David Wilson, based in Hungerford. And this is Georgina Mortimer, Planning Manager. Good evening. We're here tonight to explain the reasons for this application before you and provide an update on the bridge design, which will connect our site at Monks Farm with the completed Bellway development accessed off the A338. We're proposing to vary the timing of two planning conditions. The first condition concerns the habitat restoration method statement for the Letcombe Brook, and the second concerns the bridge. It is the bridge that has been the main focus of discussion with Grove Parish Council. These outline conditions were agreed in 2021 by the original landowners and promoter of the site, L&Q and Gleeson, who Barratt David Wilson subsequently purchased the site from. As we understand it, it was the council's expectation that the site would be developed from the east through the Bellway development and over the new bridge. However, we have subsequently had a construction method statement approved, which enabled construction to commence from the western access, which is over 350 metres from the Letcombe Brook. A preliminary design for the bridge was approved within the Section 106 at outline stage, which was designed by the original land promoter, and the design was considered acceptable at the time by the consultees and approved by officers. We first submitted a reserve access application for the bridge design and flood model in April 2022, with the discharge of condition application a month later, which was designed to meet the criteria of condition 13. However, it became clear through the consultation that the expectations for the bridge had moved on significantly from the original approved parameters. The EA required a narrower bridge to mitigate the impacts to the Letcombe Brook. However, this then conflicted with the approved highway design of the GNLR, OCC's technical standards and the Section 38 requirements for adoption highway, with all of these subsequent changes then requiring further amendments to the flood modelling. When it became clear that the approval of the bridge design and the model was taking longer to agree than anticipated, we withdrew Condition 13 in April last year and prepared the Section 73 application, which was submitted in May. Works commenced in July, and we've subsequently been working with officers to agree the condition wording, which is now acceptable to them, alongside progressing the updated design of the bridge. A revised Condition 13 discharge application has now been submitted following the close work with both the EA and Oxfordshire County Highways team over the past 18 months.
You have 30 seconds.
As a considerate developer, we aim to resolve pre-commencement conditions before starting on works on site in this scenario. We first submitted an application for the bridge design in April 2022, 15 months ahead of our intended starting site. Given that the bridge has gone through a review process at outline stage, it was anticipated at the point of submitting the application that the bridge design would have been approved well in advance of us commencing works. We understand the importance of the GNLR as a key piece of infrastructure for the village and are committed to playing our part in its delivery. We want to deliver the bridge as quickly as we can to support our own construction programme, best serve our customers and local residents, and enable future development in the wider area. We request to vary the time of the condition.
So I'm afraid we're running out of time. So you can summarise very quickly. Okay, thank you very much. And there may be some questions and clarification for you.
And we do welcome those.
Excellent. Are there any questions?
I thought Ron was going to make a
No,
statement.
Ron is going to make a statement after we've asked. So I just want to check there are no questions of clarification. I just want to clarify one thing. So originally, condition 13, I think originally the proposal was that it would say something like the occupation of no more than 55 dwellings. And I just want to clarify.
No, that's not in condition 13. So within the outline planning permission, the unit restriction is 150 units, which is in the section 106.
Sure.
This was an additional condition that has been placed on the reserve matters of phase 1B, which is the 55 units.
Okay.
That's separate from this application.
It's separate from this
Yes.
application. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Understood. Thank you. Are there any other questions? In that case, say thank you very much for your time this evening, and thank you. I'm going to call our next speaker on this application, Councillor Ron Batstone. Councillor Batstone. I would say thank you for joining us, I think you're very familiar with this setting, so you've got 3 minutes as and when you're ready.
Cheers. Thank you, Chair. Can I firstly commend the thorough report provided by officers? I know it was very extensive and complicated, but it was very clear, I thought, as well. Grove Parish Council objects because development work continued before the revised conditions were considered, which is being done this evening, and work is well underway on site. I'm very disappointed that work has commenced, and as noted by officers, it is unauthorised and at the developer's risk. However, I also agree that this is not a material consideration. Council also expressed a worry that other conditions may not be met in the future. I believe there is a general concern about how conditions are enforced, and I welcome the update to the conditions provided in this report, and we will monitor them closely. I note that there was considerable opposition from the residents of the Maples, who are right near the entrance to the site, but their objections have been withdrawn. There is ongoing contact with the developers to manage any day-to-day issues, and I can assure people that the residents of Maples frequently contact David Wilson Homes. I think the proposed amendments to the conditions are the best that we can get. It is important that we get a good design for the bridge. And this was the delay that the bridge design has to be right for Letcombe Brook. In the past, there has been problems with bridges which had been built over the brook. So getting that design for the bridge, which will form an important part of, we hope, the Northern Link Road. Importantly, the Letcombe Brook project had no objections. I have heard this evening they are a bit worried about the disturbance to the site during construction phase, but that is something that I think we can probably manage later on. There are worries from residents that the traffic on the Degworth Road will become excessive. It is already increased quite a lot because all the building traffic, of course, goes along the Degworth Road and through the Maples. It is therefore important to ensure that the revised conditions are met and that the long-term aim of building the Northern Link Road from the A338 to this estate and finally to Wellington Gate is completed. I therefore recommend that the committee accepts this application. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Councillor Batstone. I'll just see if there are any questions or clarification. Oh, Councillor Hannaby.
Yes, it's just going back to the residents of the Maples. We've had extensive emails from them early on in their concerns, and our officers have met them at all times and they've been kept informed, and they have worked with the developers, and I believe they are satisfied, although there are still concerns, but at the moment in time, the residents are satisfied.
Would you agree with that, Councillor Button?
Yes, they're my leading email correspondence.
Yes.
Right. Thank you very much. Any other questions? I wish to say thank you very much, Councillor Batstone. I'm now going to turn to any questions we've got for our officers. So as Penny mentioned, we also got Emma Turner from Enforcement and Ian Marshall from Highways here. If anyone's got any questions for any of our officers, please do direct it to who you wish to speak to. Are there any questions? Councillor Madison.
Thank you, Chair. This is really an enforcement question. While I appreciate it's not a material concern for our consideration of the application and the adherence to the conditions, I would just like to hear a little bit about what enforcement contact you have had with the developers regarding the early commencement of work. I've just
I
been
can probably start on that and then pick up anything I miss. So we were made aware of works commencing in the summer, and one of our enforcement officers went out on site to monitor works that were on site. At that time, there were other outstanding pre-commencement conditions relating to drainage and trees, if I recall. And we asked the developer to voluntarily stop work on site, which they did. In the autumn, we were contacted by the developer advising that residents of the Maples had concerns about large mounds of topsoil that were on the site from the previous work that had stopped. And residents were concerned that as we moved into the wetter months, that there could be flooding issues as a result of these topsoil piles and the drainage not being secured on site. So we advised the developers that at that point the drainage condition had been discharged. We advised the developer that works to continue on the drainage could. I think it's fair to say works continued on far beyond the drainage, but officers have been kept updated by residents, being copied into emails from residents of the Maples to the developer. The developer had been managing on-site issues in terms of construction traffic and construction timing themselves. So that since that point, there's been little sort of need for formal enforcement action because we've had this ongoing application to regularise the works on site.
Okay, well, it's good to hear there's been no need for any formal enforcement action. I don't think anybody likes it when these things become formal. So yeah, I think that's all right. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions for our officers? I can't see any, so I'm suggesting we move into debate. So can I have a motion on this application? Councillor Piggles.
I would move that we accept this application.
Yeah. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hudson. Right, is there any debate? Councillor Piggles.
I'd echo the comment by Councillor Batstone about it's been a very clear report, so thank you, Penny. Obviously lots of work has gone into the conditions and making it clear about what the obligations on the part of the developer are. I think it's clear what the direction of travel needs to be, and I can see no material reasons why we'd object to this particular application. So that's why I would move to approve.
Councillor Hanley.
Yes, I echo Councillor Batstone's comments, and also I have been keeping an eye on the Dentures Road area because there was concerns there. So although it's not in my ward, it is very near. So we have kept closely in contact with the residents and have tried where we can to help out. And the developers have got a good relationship with them now, which I'm satisfied with. And I can't see any reason why this does not go through.
Okay, well, I'll suggest we take a vote on this application. So all those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? That's unanimous. Excellent. Thank you very much. Excellent. So I now move on to our next item, which is the land north of Shrivenham. Becky, I believe you're presenting on this. Sorry, not Becky. Sorry, Penny. Apologies. Sorry, Becky speaking. Penny, I believe you're presenting on this as well. Apologies.
That's fine, no problem. I will just make sure I get the right information.
Thanks for
This application is brought to committee due to an objection from Shrivenham Parish Council. Ahmed Akram, Senior Transport Development Officer from OCC, is also present this evening should any questions arise regarding highways matters. This is a reserve matters application for internal access, appearance, layout, scale and landscaping for a retail unit on phase 2 of the North of Shrivenham strategic site. Outline permission for up to 275 dwellings and a retail unit was approved in October 2017, and reserve matters consent for the residential element comprising of 275 dwellings was approved in February 2023. Your officer's assessment of all material planning considerations relevant to this case is set out in the agenda starting on page 50. The site for the retail unit is located in the southeast corner of phase 2, the yellow element there. And it's accessed from High West Road. Phase 1 of the strategic site lies to the southeast here, and this is substantially complete. As mentioned previously, the surrounding residential development of phase 2 received reserve matters consent last year, and this is the approved layout that is currently being built out. The retail unit is proposed in the south of the site with parking to the north-east and a service and delivery bay to the south. Vehicular, pedestrian and cycle access will be from the main spine road running through the wider development of High West Road. There is also an additional pedestrian access to the east here, which connects into the wider open space which surrounds the residential development. The building is proposed to be a single-storey building with a pitched roof. It will be predominantly brick with some contrasting areas of flintwork and cladding and some glazed elements. Here are a few photos of site. There's little to see due to construction works for the residential elements well underway. Constructed houses from the adjacent phase 1 site can be seen here in the background, and phase 2 here. And the retail unit will be roughly in the area behind the soil pile and yellow shipping container here. The Parish Council have objected to the application due to the imposition of OCC's new parking standards and a reduction in the number of parking spaces provided through an amendment to the application. As originally submitted in 2021, the application proposed the provision of 24 parking spaces and cycle parking for 6 bikes. This was in accordance with OCC parking standards extant at that time. OCC adopted new parking standards in January 2023 to take into account the adopted local transport and connectivity plan, which aims to reduce 1 in 4 car journeys by 2030 by discouraging individual private vehicle journeys and making walking, cycling and shared transport the natural first choice. Amended plans were received in July 2023 following approval of the reserve matters for the adjacent housing to ensure that the layout for this application aligned with those approved plans. The amended plans reduced the number of car parking spaces to 15 spaces and increased the number of cycle spaces to 16 to accord with the new parking standards. Core policy 35 of the local plan seeks to ensure that adequate parking is delivered on new developments in accordance with OCC standards. And policy P1 of the Shrivenham Neighbourhood Plan also states that the development proposals should incorporate parking to standards provided by OCC. The small retail unit proposed will primarily serve the needs of residents in the immediate surrounding developments and easily accessible by foot or cycle. A travel plan required by condition can set out how sustainable modes of transport to the store are promoted by the future occupier. Officers consider that the proposed development is in accordance with core policy 35 of the local plan, which seeks to encourage walking and cycling within new development and to nearby facilities. Officers consider that the details of internal access, appearance, layout, scale and landscaping are acceptable and accord with the development plan. Details including ecological enhancement features, lighting, mechanical plants and its enclosure can be secured by condition. The application is therefore recommended for approval, subject to the conditions set out on pages 50 to 52.
So thank you very much, Penny. We will turn to you for some questions once we've heard from our speaker on this application. We have one speaker on this application, Becky Pull, Senior Planner, Keller Homes. Becky, are you there?
Hi, I am Chair, yes.
So we can see you and we can hear you, and you've got 3 minutes when you're ready.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to speak in support of this application. The principle of the proposed retail unit has been established through the outline planning permission, and this application seeks the approval of the detailed layout, appearance, scale, landscaping, and internal access arrangements. Carla have reviewed the planning officer's report and concurs with the assessment within the report. While Carla Holmes understands the reasons for Shrivenham Parish Council's concerns in relation to car parking provision, the proposed retail unit has been designed in line with Oxfordshire County Council Highways parking standards and the Vale of White Horses policies. The case officer has concluded that the proposed retail unit accords with policy. Carla Holmes therefore respectfully requests that planning permission for this application is granted.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll just ask if anyone's got any questions or clarification for you. Are there any questions? In which case, thank you very much for your time this evening. And I now move on to any questions we have for our officers. So does anyone have any questions for our officers on this application? In which case, I'll suggest we move into debate, for which I need a motion. Can someone put forward a motion on this application? Councillor Pickles.
Same as one I did last time. I think we should approve this particular application as there are no material planning reasons for rejecting it.
Do I have a second? Councillor Halloween.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any debate on this application?
I mean, it's, I'm very, very keen to see a local retail facilities opening up to avoid people having to drive into town centres and things. But I know the layout of Shrivenham means that you could probably walk to centre of Shrivenham, the shops from most of these estates anyway. So, generally looks like a good building. Seems to be quite attractive to look at, and I support it.
I agree. The design was good, and I'm pleased to see that's up to 16 cycle spaces from 6. I think that's a good thing, and it seems to accord with OCC's guidance, with our guidance. So I'm very happy to support this. Okay, in that case, take a vote. Those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? That's unanimous. Excellent. Thank you very much. So I now move on to our final application this evening, which is in Chiswell, the Carmelite Priory in Gores Hill. Next, I'll leave you presenting this one. Sorry, I'll leave you presenting this one. What's wrong with your name? I apologise.
It's going to be a new application to get to.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Chair. So just a quick update before I start. In the report, it states that the conditions have been sent to the agent for agreement, the pre-commencement conditions. These have now been agreed.
Okay.
So if members accept the officer recommendation, permission can be granted subject to those conditions.
Okay.
Right, so this application is referred to committee at the request of the local member, Councillor Julie Roberts. The application site is the Carmelite Priory at Chilswell House in Gores Hill. The site is within the parishes of both Wootton and Cumnor. All of the existing buildings are within the parish of Cumnor, whilst the access road and Sutherland are within the parish of Wootton. The site is constrained by its position within the Oxford Greenbelt. Several trees protected by a tree preservation order and legally protected species on the site, and an area of ancient woodland immediately to the west. There are public rights of way along the western and northern boundaries. There is a long established use of the site as a priory which hosts mass, courses and retreats for Carmelites. There are currently 32 bedrooms across the existing buildings, a chapel, meeting rooms and offices. This application seeks approval for the demolition of 2 buildings, erecting of extensions to create a new courtyard, hard and soft landscaping, including a new pond and revised car parking arrangements, and the installation of a ground-mounted solar array. Block plan shows the existing buildings across the site and the high level tree cover. Vehicular access is gained from the south. The proposed block plan shows the substantial extension arranging a courtyard with Chilswell House, the chapel and the pyramid building linked in the southern part of the courtyard, with 3 new buildings, a meeting room building, a refectory and a reception building to the north, linked by covered walkway. A pond is proposed to the east of the new courtyard, and a rationalised car parking is provided to the west and in the southern field beside the ground-mounted solar array. These are the existing elevations, which show Chilswell House, the chapel, with the attached flat roof annex and the pyramid building at the top, and the cottage at the bottom. The annex is proposed to be demolished, whilst the cottage is unaffected by the development. Further elevations are shown, including the Mount Carmel Centre to the right, which is proposed to be demolished. The proposed elevations show the extension to Chilswell House's roof, the 1.5-storey link extension, the meeting and reception buildings, and the refectory. The floor plan shows the enhanced facility which will be provided by the proposed extension on the ground floor, first floor, and second floor. It's important to note that the overall number of bedrooms will be reduced from 32 to 30, but each bedroom will now be larger and have an ensuite bathroom. The 2 landscaping plans show the extensive levels of planting proposed, both on the boundaries and within the site. In particular, new screen planting is proposed on the north and western boundaries beside the public rights of way. I will now go through some photos of the site, both from within the site and the surrounding public right of way network, which is shown on the OS map. Note that the surrounding topology of the land and the extensive levels of tree cover effectively screen the site from most public vantage points. This is Chilswell House, whose roof is proposed to be extended. This is the chapel, which is to be retained and extended to the side. This is the pyramid building, which is again to be retained and extended. This is the cottage, which is unaffected by the development. And this is the Mount Carmel Centre, which will be demolished. This is the annex, which also is to be. This photo shows the current informal parking arrangement, which takes place across much of the site. So for the following photos, in the bottom left corner, I've indicated where the photo was taken from with an approximate view that is shown, and then the black arrow on the photo itself shows the approximate location of the priory. So you can see this photo was taken from the south of Chilswell Farm, showing that the extensive tree cover between this public right of way and the site prevents any views of the priory. So this photo is taken from the Greenbelt Way, which obviously is this is a promoted footpath or right of way. And this shows how the typology of the land prevents any views from this angle. This is the public footpath on the way up the hill towards the priory. And you can now see some filtered views of the priory. But those evergreen trees which filter the view are going to be bolstered by trees closer to this view in the foreground. This is close to the site where the buildings are more obvious, but again, these views are filtered and it's not that clear. But on the right hand side of this photo, this was taken almost a year ago, but there was tree planting taking place on the day that I visited, and you can just about see that the trees are on the right hand side there, so that when they establish, they'll further filter views from that vantage point. And this is from the northern boundary of the site, so again filtered views, and more screen planting is proposed on this boundary. And this is from the west, which shows obviously clearer views of the buildings, with the Mount Carmel Centre on the left-hand side, which is to be demolished, and the flat roof black building, which you can just about make out through the trees, which is also to be demolished. But again, more planting is proposed in this boundary. And the same again, slightly different angle, and you can see the LPG or oil tanks which are to be removed as part of this development. This is from the same bridleway, but this is a view of the southern field where the solar array and the part of the new car parking is proposed. And again, there's more planting proposed on this boundary. And the same for here. This is the view of the vehicular access. Obviously, this will remain the vehicle access. There still will be some glimpse views through this access, but there is again additional planting on the southern boundary of the site. And this is a view further up the lane, which shows again that even without the additional planting that's proposed, the views are very much filtered and screened by the vegetation. The members are advised that there are no technical objections to the development, and therefore the key issue when determining this application is the impact on the Oxford Greenbelt. New buildings and other forms of development are only not inappropriate development in the Greenbelt if they meet certain exceptions. Officers consider that the extensions to the Priory and the solar array are inappropriate development in the Greenbelt, as they do not meet one of these exceptions. The development, these elements of the development would also harm openness, and in the case of the solar array, conflict with the purposes of Greenbelt. Inappropriate development in the Greenbelt should only be approved in very special circumstances where the harm to the Greenbelt is clearly outweighed by other considerations. Any harm to the Greenbelt carries significant weight, and inappropriate development is by definition harmful to the Greenbelt. The harm to openness and conflict with the purposes of Greenbelt increases the level of this harm further. In this instance, the proposals are considered to result in several benefits, which weigh in favour of the proposals. The development will substantially increase the sustainability of the Priory and reduce carbon emissions associated with its running. The proposed habitat creation will also secure a net gain in biodiversity of 15% in habitat units and 41% in hedgerow units. Both of these benefits are considered to attract significant weight in favour of the proposals. The improvements to the design of the building, the economic benefits, particularly during construction, the cultural benefits in terms of improvements to the Priory, and the need for the development and lack of reasonable alternatives are all considered to attract moderate weight in favour of the proposals. Taken together, officers consider that these benefits do outweigh the harm to the Greenbelt, and very special circumstances do exist. Therefore, it is recommended that planning permission be granted subject to the recommended conditions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We'll return to you for some questions that we've heard from our speakers. So we've got two categories of speakers in this application. First, we've got two people speaking in support. Father Alexander Ezechukwu, I hope I pronounced that reasonably well, OCD, and Jeremy Floyd. Please. Thank you both very much for joining us. You'll have 3 minutes to split between you, and there may be some questions of clarification from committee afterwards. So as and when you're ready.
Jim, thank you for allowing me and members of the committee for allowing me to speak at tonight's meeting in support of this important application. My name is Jeremy Flawn and I'm a partner of Bluestone Planning. We're the agents for this application and in fact, I've been doing the application all the way through. The application is made on behalf of the Carmelite Priory in Boars Hill. I'm joined this evening by Father Alex, and who is the prior at Chilswell House, and who he will also be saying a few words in a moment. I didn't want to take up much of your time, just to make a few points. Tonight's debate represents the culmination of over 3 years' work to get to the scheme that's before you this evening, including a lot of public engagement in the early stages of the process and engagement with various organisations around the area as well, who have all input into the proposals, and that's resulted in the scheme that we have tonight. On behalf of the applicant, we welcome the positive way in which your officers have worked with the applicant's consultant team to address each of the issues which have arisen during the course of this application. And having read the officer's report to committee, I note that the issues are very clearly set out and the justification is very carefully argued. And it is really, really important because it's such a critical point in the Greenbelt where we are dealing with exceptional circumstances. So these decisions are not made lightly. While some harm to the Greenbelt will arise, as the case officer has pointed out, it is demonstrated in the report that the harm will be outweighed by benefits, in particular biodiversity net gains and sustainability improvements. The high quality design also chimes with what the government is saying in the recently published NPPF about building beautiful. And I think that's a really important point. There are other benefits, landscape, cultural, economic, which also weigh in the balance. And therefore, really, we do commend these proposals to you and hope that you will follow the recommendation. I'll hand over to Father Alex.
Well, thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to speak, and committee members. As Jeremy said, I'm the prior of the Carmelite community in Boars Hill, and the development proposed means an awful lot to our future, to our ministry, and to our work. And we are very much encouraged by the support that we received by the local community, who are happy with what we proposed. And we are committed to the ecological sustainability of where we are.
You have 30 seconds.
Yes, and the Boars Hill, where we are, our priory is a place of great beauty, and we are committed to preserving it and enhancing it. And we hope that this project will contribute to that.
Thank you very much. I'll now turn to committee if anyone's got any questions for either of you. Councillor Madison.
Thank you, Chair. So you currently have 32 bedrooms on the site, and this application, if approved, would see you move to 30. I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit about why it is that the building needs to be redeveloped in your view, given that it's not going to be, you'll have the same amount of people roughly as you already can take on the site. So what is the reason from your point of view for the change?
So the building we have, were put up, some especially the ones to be demolished 60 something years ago. So it's all shared facilities, and the pandemic really brought it to our attention that we needed to upgrade the facilities for the people who come to use it, to make it safe for them.
And what sort of use do they make of the building?
Well, they come and stay as a place for rest and for study. Yeah.
I think it's worth saying a number of the buildings have reached or gone beyond the end of their life now, particularly the annex building, which houses most of the accommodation, which is effectively a terrapin building from quite a considerable time ago.
Yeah.
They're sharing bathroom facilities. It's just not really appropriate. If you built it today, you wouldn't be building accommodation in that way. And that's that accommodation, plus the general improvements to the refectory dining facilities, which are not looking to expand in terms of capacity so much as expand to meet current needs today. I think that's the difference. Yeah. And that's why they aren't really talking about changing the intensity in which the way the facility is used. It's more about making sure it's fit for purpose today and for the next generation.
I understand. Thank you.
Councillor Biggles.
Just picking the thread of Councillor Madison. I mean, I accept that the existing buildings, particularly the ones you want to demolish, are probably a bit of an eyesore actually when you look at the photographs. And I accept the fact that you want to buy better facilities. But I think it's 4,000 cubic meters of additional space? That does sound like, and the building itself is now becoming quite an imposing, large building. And I do wonder whether you need to, that volumetric increase and the largeness and the imposing nature of the building, even though it's relatively well screened, it does seem, from my perspective, looking at the photographs and the visualizations, to be quite against the principles of the green belt. And you know, I find it strange to understand why you need to be so big and so imposing.
You're absolutely right to point out that there is an increase. It's between 56, depending on how you measure it, it's between 56 and 59% increase in volume.
I think it's 4,000 cubic meters.
It goes from 4,100 to 6,500. So it's about 2,400 net internal volume increase. Yes. If it's gross, it goes up by a little bit more, but that includes the walls. So you are right. I think the consequence of modernising the building and the facilities that are there is that they do require more space, and that's unavoidable because we're providing ensuite facilities, for example, for each bedroom, as opposed to having a shared bathroom and toilet for a number of bedrooms. Corridors require to be wider than they used to be. So everything generally does grow a little bit more just to comply with building regulations and other requirements. But taking your point, there are other changes which have happened as a result of the modernisation of the way that the Priory operates. And as Father Alex pointed out, during COVID, obviously a lot of people couldn't get to the facility, but what they did discover was a huge increase in online activities, and the Priory has really focused on that. And so some of those facilities that we're now providing include the modern ability to transmit services and teachings through online, so in dedicated facilities. Some of the accommodation that's in Chilswell House itself, so I think there are 8 bedrooms for guests in Chilswell House itself, present a problem for the way the Priory operates, because that's also where everybody lives day to day in on the site, and that causes conflict between guests and residents. So those units need to move out into other accommodation. Ideally, it's not good from a sense of operating it in the modern day. So there isn't one reason why it increases that much, but there are a number of contributing factors which have led to it increasing to the size it is. I think it's important to make the point they haven't pushed the envelope beyond what they consider to be necessary to meet their requirements.
Councillor Hanley, did you have a? Councillor Hanley, sorry, I couldn't. I thought you might have caught my eye. No.
No, that I was.
No, my mistake.
No, that's fine.
That's fine. Any further questions? In which to say thank you very much for your time this evening, and I now call upon our final speaker, Councillor Scott Howson. Well, good evening, Councillor Howson, and as with everyone else, you've got 3 minutes as and when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, councillors, and thank you to the officers for putting the report together. As has been mentioned multiple times already this evening, the question that's being asked here really is about balance. It's made clear in the report that we consider that this proposal, this application would do harm to the Greenbelt, both in terms of the extensions to the main buildings and in terms of the solar panels that's being installed in the field to the south. It's my view, and indeed the view of Common Parish Council, hopefully councillors have read the report from the Chair of Common Parish Council, that the balance, it does not fall in favour of this application. For reference, when the pre-application advice was sought for this some time ago, the original increase at that point in terms of size was approximately 22% in volume. As we just heard, the current increase is now 59%, depending on exactly how you measure it. And at the time of the pre-application advice, it was then viewed that the development would be inappropriate due to the harm to the openness and conflict with the land within, and this would not be outweighed by the benefits. Similarly, further, when we look at the weighting applied to the various factors, there are a few bits of the weighting which I view as slightly questionable. We obviously know that the fact that this is inappropriate development within the green belt means that it must be weighted significantly. And while I know also the biodiversity increase and the carbon reduction can also be viewed as significant, I also question whether a smaller building would not improve that yet further. And I also wonder whether the viewing of the high quality design as having a moderate benefit is truly accurate when we also consider the increased size and imposing nature of the buildings. Finally, the question of the economic benefits, which have also been rated as a moderate improvement, and yet this is viewed as only applying during the construction phase. Sorry, I said finally. There was one other point I wish to make.
You have 30 seconds.
Thank you. And that is that while this is in a remote area and well shielded, the two rights of way which are alongside the site are heavily used. And in fact, when the Cumnor Neighbourhood Plan, was put together, the second largest thing which residents wish to protect was our walking routes. We have an awful lot of walking routes through the parish, and that was something they really strongly wanted to protect. So in summary, it's all about balance, and I hope the committee debates that and puts their view on the balance of this application.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any questions or clarification? I can't see any, so I'll say thank you very much for your time this evening. I now turn to any officers we have for officers. So has anyone got any questions for us? Councillor?
Just a factual kind of just 5.14 in your report. Am I correct in thinking this 4,000 cubic metres increase in volume as a result of this development?
I couldn't not, sir. 1.4.
I just want to make sure that number was right, because there's obviously a little bit of debate.
So I think that was an approximate figure, but to be honest, it is inappropriate development with a significant increase in volume. I think the specific number of cubic meters additional is not necessarily as important as it is a substantial increase in volume and therefore inappropriate development. So I didn't, the assessment one.
I want to know, just checking it was right. That's all.
I assume so, but okay. Approximately.
That's handy.
Yes, inappropriate development. I think this is an application that one has to look at in a logical manner as well, because some of the buildings are now past their sell-by date by a long talk. Obviously, it's well used and well valued. I thought that the height was slightly reduced. I've been desperately trying to find out. It wasn't on another application, but I thought that the height of the building wasn't so high. Can you tell us on that?
From when?
From the original.
No, I believe, in fact, from the pre-app, I think it's actually a slightly larger building.
It's taller. Or wider.
I think it's just bigger in general.
Yeah.
So in terms of the pre-app, yes, we did provide fairly. We said that at that stage we didn't think that the benefits would outweigh the harm. And then the application came in with a slightly larger building, I believe, but better design in my opinion.
It's the design.
And they fleshed out the application made a much stronger case in terms of the benefits, because at the pre-app stage they were fairly not circumspect, but they weren't measurable in the way that they are within this application. And it was at that stage, that those benefits are considered to outweigh it. And despite the larger size of the building, I think the better design now means that is actually a benefit as well. Whereas before, I don't think the design could have been described as high quality. Whereas I think it certainly could.
And you've shown us how it's situated with the green trees, etc. I was interested in the footpath which people can use. By having a larger development, that isn't still going to stop people working on that footpath.
Oh no, not at all. So they're all set off by a long way.
Exactly right. And I noticed the Oxford Greenbelt Network had no objection. In fact, there's hardly any objections from the officers at all.
Yeah, so
I
consulted the kind of bodies that are, involved.
Yeah, the would have been worrying hard.
And then,
that's what I'm trying to get over here. The ones that would worry are not. And that struck me straight away where I was looking for. In Greenbelt, people are usually extremely objecting, but in this case it isn't. I have to say I quite like the design myself, but that's a personal so I personally haven't got an issue with this. I think this is something that we could look at. As you say, it's a one-off, but I understand Cumnor Parish Council. I know that they work very hard to try and keep their area as is, but there are some times when there might be a benefit for having a development of this sort. As I say, it's my own opinion, so I haven't a problem with this at all. Looking at it, I can't see any reason myself.
Sorry. Oh, sorry.
No, I'll stop.
I think it follows on from that as well, because so we've heard about the pre-app advice, and that was a smaller building, and council were less minded, had more issues. One thing that's given substantial weight here is the biodiversity mitigation. Is that one of the things that's been clarified?
Yeah, so I think in the pre-app, we will aim to have biodiversity.
So it's very general.
Whereas this application says exactly how much, and we secure that through condition. So the weight that you can give it is much increased.
And can I just ask, in your opinion, so here's a 15% habitat units, 41% in hedgerow units, and that's given significant weight. I guess maybe it's not a question that can be fully answered, but I guess at what point is the elevation in habitat units and hedgerow units given significant weight, in your opinion? So it's 15, 41.
Yeah.
If it was 5 and 20, it wouldn't be significant.
Well, I think it's important to note. So, in the Environment Act has provisions that every application of this type will provide a minimum of 10% net gain.
Right.
But that doesn't apply to this application.
Right.
So they have no legal requirement to provide any.
Right.
So we have to give weight to the full 15% in terms of habitat and 41%.
So we're not just giving weight to the 5%.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's why it's significant in my view.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions for our officers? In which case, I'm going to suggest we move into debate. So I need a motion on this application. Councillor Madison.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to propose that we accept the officer's recommendations and approve the application. To sum up briefly my views, which are basically as put forward by the officers. When I saw the agenda for this meeting, I've got to admit, I immediately thought this would be the most interesting application, at least in terms of the consideration of the planning balance. I think that's proven to be the case. For me, I think the mitigating factors of the trees and the gradient of the land shielding the views of the site really mitigate the impact of the increased mass of the buildings. And the overall impact to the openness and the general scene. If it was in a more open location, I think I might swing the other way in my thoughts on it. But given that it is generally going to be quite shielded from public view, I don't believe that the harm to the green belt is significant enough for us to reject it in light of the other balancing considerations. That's basically my view, and I would propose that we accept the recommendation.
And seconded by Councillor Hannity.
Seconded, yeah. And if I may, I think that the design will fit in really well there. I quite like the design myself, and I thank you for this very good report. It really was helpful to put our mind to where we need to go. But on the whole, I think this is one of the areas in the Greenbelt that I could support. And I don't usually always.
Is there any further debate? Councillor Hill?
Yeah, I have a different view. And kind of like, obviously these kinds of positions are all on balance. I just think this is a huge building. It's a huge increase in size for essentially the same function. I mean, architecturally, in terms of keeping and the kind of joining together with the existing building and the removal of the existing kind of porta cabin style things is definitely an improvement. However, it just feels spatially overbearing and just a huge building for what is stated to be the same purpose. And I do worry, not that I doubt that it will stay the same purpose, I just worry that we're about to approve something, or danger of approving something, which is irreversible effectively. And whilst we accept this harm, we offset it with things which could be achieved anyway, like the biodiversity. If you want to, if you wanted to improve the biodiversity of the site, you don't need this project to do it. And I think sometimes it almost feels like a developer's way of excusing why they want to do something. So I would argue that it is imposing. It is maybe a huge building, and frankly, I don't find it appealing to set it in the middle of an area where there aren't very, very large buildings like this. I mean, apart from the Kingston University, and I think if we're serious about protecting the green belt, we shouldn't be allowing things at this scale.
Any further, Councillor Rennan?
One of my concerns is the solar array part. When we saw the photographs, and I don't know, it's the east of the site, but right at the side of the footpath is where the solar array will be. And I know that's in the report is pointed out as a consideration, and that it was viewed that that sort of may be an issue. It's just the way I think, as Councillor Biddle said, it's the scale of everything that seems to, it's like a creeping scale, and that does concern me. I think the building is lovely. It obviously needs work. It's 1960s building. There's lots of it that's inappropriate for today's world. But I don't know if it needs to be that big. It makes me feel a bit uncomfortable that the scale of it makes me feel uncomfortable. And I know that's not a material objection.
But it's in the context of the green belt.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable grounds to object. Are there any further comments on this? I mean, ultimately, this is an unbalanced decision. There is harm to the green belt cause, and we have to weigh up whether the benefits are sufficient to outweigh this. Councillor Hannaby.
Our officers have weighed all that up, and they have given us a recommendation.
They have.
And having read their report and listened to the reasons why, and we can see the reasons why they want it. If you are going to spend this sort of money and you want to keep, you want to keep this together and for the benefit of the people that want to use it in this area, and also the trees are screened. I mean, we could ask for more screening if we want to, if we feel that's right. With the path is not going to be compromised, etc. And we've seen some very good photographs around, and we can make decisions in the green belt if we wish to. It's just my thoughts that I think that it once built, and with my background, I know things can be built and people worry, but once they're built, they forget what it was like before once it's built. So I'm just saying that I would support this application.
Councillor Batson.
Yes, I think just supporting what Councillor Hannaby said. I think from the photographs we saw, the screening and the trees are sufficient to mitigate the effects of the increase in size of this building, and I think the increase in biodiversity and moving to green energy, I think, are positives as well. So on balance, I would support this application.
There's a couple of comments being made about trees and things. Of course, that's a particular time of the year when there are leaves on the trees, and there's there are times when this will be more visible because there won't be
the building's there now anyway.
But not at this scale, this height, this volume.
Is there any further debate on this?
Many trees not evergreen.
Well, I think, I mean, I don't mind if you want to respond to that in terms of the nature of the trees. I know we're in debate, but the type of trees.
Some of them are, yes, there are pines proposed, but there is a landscaping condition recommended, because whilst we've got landscaping details, they're not of a sufficient level of detail that we could condition their implementation. But yeah, I think there are evergreens proposed in that mix.
Okay. Any further debate on this, or should we take a vote? I'm suggesting we take a vote on this. So are we vote to accept our officer's recommendation? Those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? Okay, that passes. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you to our officers for some excellent reports. Thank you, councillors, for your time, and thank you to all our speakers. And with that, I close the meeting. Bertie, can you please let us know when the live